Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Chef Jenny Komar. I am a Johnson Wales alumni, graduated in 2009, yay class of 2009. Hopefully there's a few of you out there. I presently teach at the North Miami campus. I am a culinary arts instructor and culinary nutrition instructor, as well as the department chair for both of those colleges. So very excited to be part of the JWU family once again. This is almost the end of my 4th year with the university, so excited. So I graduated with my degree in culinary nutrition, received my dietitian's license, and then started working in industry and started working with NCAA sports teams. So nutrition and sports are kind of my background and what I end up doing. Tonight I'm going to present, I hope some of you had a chance to see the recipe that we're going to bring to you. It is a plant-based recipe, tuna salad or tunaless salad. I'm going to show you first how to make the vegan mayonnaise and then use that to incorporate it into the tunaless salad recipe. So before I get started, I just wanted to kind of let you know that this is going to be find it in your cupboard kind of recipe or like a very low cost recipe, because I know right now it's a bit difficult, one, finding things in the store, and then two, financially, some of us, especially restaurant workers, are having difficulties finding work. So just trying to be mindful of our pockets, while being mindful of taste too. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. It's a relatively easy recipe, but then it also uses majority of simple ingredients, and it's kind of sustainable as well because it uses all the ingredients, especially within our chickpeas. So we're going to harness the power of aquafaba, and then it's going to use some artichoke hearts. Now, if artichoke hearts are not accessible, don't like them, can't find them, all the above or none, you can use a second can of the chickpeas. That's not a problem at all. So I'm going to get started. I have this lovely little beaker here. Oh yes, I'm so sorry. If you hear a small voice in the background, I live by myself. So being able to read your questions or comments on the feed is going to be difficult because I can't be in two places at once. But I have our beautiful, wonderful representative from the North Miami campus, Shayna Forbes, on my FaceTime over here in the corner. And she's going to read some of your comments, so please feel free to ask, share. There might be a small delay between her feed as well as the question. But if it's interesting and need me to repeat something or whatnot, she'll be there to relay that to me. So thank you, Shayna, for reminding me. I forgot.
You're welcome.
All right, so can of chickpeas can be anyone. I just had a reduced sodium one in the house. Pro tip, if you're making this or think about making this beforehand, pop it in the refrigerator. One of the things that I learned about making any type of tuna salad or egg salad or whatnot, refrigerate your ingredients first, because if you want to eat it right after you make it, then it's cold. I don't like warm tuna salad, so, and that's just my little tip to you. So these chickpeas, we're gonna put them in the food processor. We're gonna use them in a minute. They're gonna be important, but I just want to get all the aquafaba out first. Pop those in there. And then I'm going to take this aquafaba and add to it a little bit of Dijon because yummy and tasty. But then also it serves a purpose. So for those of you who are culinary minded might know how mayonnaise begins, but those who don't, it starts with a little bit of egg yolk and Dijon mustard. And the egg yolk is there to help bind it all together. Well, we're going plant-based, so we don't have egg yolk. So that's what the aquafaba is for. Aquafaba is gonna be that egg product to give it structure and body and balance for us. And then the Dijon gives it flavor, but then also it's an emulsifying agent, which means that it binds two unlike things together. So mayonnaise is heavily amount of oil, so we're gonna put that in there, immerse it in a second, and we want to be able to bind it together. So that mustard's gonna be there for its purpose. One good spoonful helps. I like a little bit of extra Dijon because it's tasty. So one good heaping spoonful or two. I have 2 cloves of garlic, just smashing them. Don't necessarily need to chop it up or anything at this point. You just take the skin off. pop it with your heel of your palm and just take the skin off. Yes, Shayna?
So, you have a question from David. David is asking, when did you decide to become vegan?
So for me, I always kind of followed like a plant-based vegetarian diet. Unwillingly, I didn't really care for pork products that much, so that wasn't too hard of a transition, and I never really wanted a lot of meat whenever I would have meals. I know my Midwestern family is like rolling over and besides themselves, but it is what it is. But I took the leap almost 3 years ago. It was right around that 1 year mark when I moved to Miami. If you all haven't had the opportunity to visit us, we are a very health-minded area. So I took the opportunity, and we also are blessed with a lot of produce and fresh fruits and vegetables almost year-round. So for me, not super difficult. And also I was already starting to do that way. So almost 3 years ago. Good question, David. Thanks. All right. So I have this immersion blender. It's thank you to school for letting me borrow because I don't own one personally. I also don't own a blender, so if you have a blender or one of these, there's probably smaller commercial or retail ones you can buy at Target or Walmart. The same goes if you're using a blender. You put all the ingredients except for the oil in the pitcher, put it on the base, start it up, and then you add the oil through the top where you remove the little bit of the plastic cap. But we're doing it with an immersion blender today. So just a warning, might have a little bit of feedback, so turn your volume down if you don't want to hear a lot of buzzing for a little bit. So that just was to grind up the mustard and the aquafaba and the garlic. And then this is where my balancing skills are going to come in handy. While this is mixing, I'm going to then slowly stream in the oil until it gets to the consistency of mayonnaise to create that emulsification. This is going to be a little bit, maybe a minute or two of noise, so just a heads up. I'm going to try not to talk over it though. Yes, ma'am.
Another question. What's the best vegan dish you've ever had?
The best vegan dish that I've ever had. There's a local restaurant that's near me. I love anything that's to do with noodles and pasta. They had this really unctuous and just decadent, creamy mushroom and truffle, like Alfredo sauce, and they used an udon noodle, which is a Japanese noodle. It has a little bit more chew to it, and it was heavenly. It had all these different types of mushrooms in it, this truffle cream sauce, and the noodles had this texture that was bouncy and chewy that I was dying for. So you have me at noodles if you ever want to cook anything for me. So before I get finished with the mayonnaise, you notice I didn't put any salt and pepper in it. I know my beans had reduced sodium in it. I like to give it a taste before I go ahead and finish it off. I might need this a little bit later, so I'm just gonna move it out of the way. Taste it for salt and pepper if I need it. Spoonful of mayonnaise. And I honestly don't think it needs anything else because it has that garlic, it has a little bit of that sodium from the canned beans already. So I'm just going to clean off the wand here. Tried not to waste all that beautiful mayonnaise that I made. Now the one downside to cooking and living by myself right now is I am the chef and also the dishwasher. So the struggle is real, guys. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't make all the dishes for myself to do a little bit later. And I'm struggling with this. So we're just gonna put it off to the side and work with it later.
And for everybody just tuning in, thank you and welcome. Chef Jenny Pomar here is making tuna salad.
Yes.
A vegan option to tuna salad.
And also cost effective. So if you ever are a little bit struggling, have some beans and some artichokes or just beans in the house too, you can use that. And I never really cared for tuna salad when I was growing up. So it's also another option for a meatless meal. Cool. So tuna salad, so those chickpeas that I had from earlier are reserved off. They're in my food processor. Then next I'm going to take my artichoke hearts. I drain them prior to this. You don't need the liquid. It doesn't really serve a purpose for me. And then before I add them to the food processor along with that chickpea, I'm going to put them on a paper towel. I want to get them a little bit drier than they are presently.
Chef, you have a question about mayo.
Mayo, sure.
How long can you save the vegan mayo?
So it has a general shelf life like regular mayonnaise, like homemade mayonnaise, up to a month. But I challenge you to hold on to it for that long because you can use it for more tuna-less salads. You can use it for an eggless salad if you wanted to make that with tofu and some salt and pepper and other spices. Also great for blends on other sandwiches if you just wanted to cut out regular mayonnaise. I didn't care for regular mayonnaise because it tasted too eggy. This one doesn't have that eggy taste to it. It just has that yummy garlic and Dijon mustard taste to it. Good question. Alrighty. So the artichoke hearts are nice and dry. I'm going to add those into the food processor. And we are making tuna salad, not hummus. So one of the key things here is that we're not going to puree it continually, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to pulse it. I'm going to make sure that it's nice and secure and closed. So again, this is going to be a little loud, so lower your volume if you need to. And if it gets stuck at the top, this is a very inexpensive food processor I got at Target, so it doesn't sometimes self-clean it or self-wipe down, so I got to do it myself. And the reason why I put the two different items in there, the chickpeas as well as the artichoke hearts, is I like the texture. Because when you think about tuna, when you get it from the can, it has some of those bigger flakes of the meat. That's what the artichokes are there to mimic. And then it has a little bit of the finer minced tuna to it. So it gives you all a really nice kind of mouthfeel when you eat it and a nice little texture and mimics the flakiness of a tuna. One more scrape down and then it looks like I want it to. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a show. I'll put it up to the camera so you can see what consistency I'm going for, so you get a better idea at home. So that's what it's going to look like. It's going to be a little bit more flaky from those artichokes. Not necessarily a paste, but closer to like a mince. Think like cooked ground meat is the texture that we're going there. And it's okay if some of the chickpeas are a little bit whole. Since they're canned, they're already pre-cooked, so they'll be soft instead of if you use dried chickpeas and then reconstituted them. If you only have dried beans at home, which is fine, my recommendation to you is that you would be able to use those after you cook them until they get soft. And if you don't have the liquid from the can, the aquafaba, you can use the cooking liquid, but you have to cook it down, almost reduce it to about 3/4 of its original volume of what you cooked it in. Or use a regular mayonnaise if you have that at home and you're not fully plant-based. So there's a lot of options here for you. We'll come back to this in just a little bit. Put that right up there. Maybe you can see it. And then we're gonna do a little bit of knife cuts. This is up to great debate of what you like included in your tuna salad. So I grew up with sweet pickle relish, red onion, and celery. Some individuals are adamant about having eggs in them. Not a fan. But if you are, you could add those, then it would be vegetarian, totally cool. You can also take and crumble up little pieces of firm tofu into it to give it the same kind of texture. And then if you wanted that sulfury taste of an egg, there's a lovely salt called kalal namak, and that's a Himalayan pink salt that has that sulfury, funky egg kind of taste, just a tiny pinch, like not even an eighth of a teaspoon, like a little boop for it. So I'm going to cut up our celery first. For those of us who are in the culinary industry, you might know how to do this. For those of us who are just joining because they're bored and have nothing else to do in self-isolation, I'm going to show you how to do some celery. So I don't like the white ends or the leaves because they're a little bit bitter. And then what I do is I take them and cut them into kind of little small batons. Off to the side. And then the ones that look like this, I pull the smaller bits off. The medium-sized one I cut halfway. And then they kind of look julienne, little French fry sticks. So I'm going to take them, stack them together. I am using a chef's knife. You can use a paring knife, just as long as it's sharp. It doesn't really matter what brand it is. I like a Shun. That's my favorite brand because they're a little bit smaller. And then to cut, point of the blade on the board, and then you follow the curve of the knife and you just rock back and forth. And then what you're doing with your hands is that you're pushing the food underneath the knife. You're not chasing the food all over your cutting board. So
Chef, you have another question.
Sure, what's the question?
How much protein is in this dish?
How much protein is in this dish? That is a very good question. Where's my can of chickpeas? So, in a full can of chickpea, for this one, for one serving, there's 6 grams, and there's about 4 of those in this can of chickpeas. So that's about 24 grams of protein. That's pretty close. If you ate the whole thing, which I don't know if that's what you want, if you ate the whole thing, that's close to what your daily needs are for protein. You need about 30 grams on the regular for an average human diet spread out through the day. So not too much. So for one serving of the beans, which is a half a cup, that's 6 grams of protein. And a half a cup usually looks a little bit bigger than the palm size of your hand if it's domed. This comes the fun part. Any other questions that I can answer while I'm cutting, Shayna?
As of right now, no, that was the last one.
Okay,
Does
cool.
anybody else have any questions?
Feel free.
Maybe we can chat about Miami campus.
Sure. So if there's any students that are, or prospective students too, I went to the Providence campus, and so I was new to the Miami campus when I first started here in 2016, and it's fantastic. One, I have to admit, I'm not gonna lie, I love the beaches and the sand, so there's that. Outside of when you're doing your homework and all of the necessary things that you should as a student. And there's a great amount of international activity here. We are a major port city, and we have some great, we have 2 major airports nearby, so there's a fair amount of individuals here coming here for a vacation or whatnot, but then we have a strong Haitian and Cuban and South America population. It's very strong. It has some great food. We have all the Cuban food that you could wish for, all the Haitian food, which I've come to really love. They have a love for spice and fire in their food that is amazing. And they also have a very large presence of South Americans here, and I've learned to love arepas, which are fantastic. Little cornmeal cakes, usually stuffed with cheese, though I don't eat cheese now, but you can stuff it with pretty much anything that you would want or like, or vegan cheese too, that works. All right.
We actually have another question.
Ooh, sure, go ahead.
Do you ever miss eating meat? Chicken, pork, or beef?
Do I ever miss eating meat? You know, the one thing, not necessarily the meat, I miss eggs. I really do. I'm not even gonna lie to you. The best bit that I love is any type of breakfast potato and an over easy egg on top where you burst that yellow yolk on top. I think that's better than ketchup, honestly, than anything else. But meat-wise, I'm okay. We live in the renaissance of like vegan and vegetarian protein alternatives. So Beyond, though I'm not too big of a fan because they have about the same amount of saturated fat as a burger. So if anyone's gonna eat a burger, I might as well eat a burger. I have that left. I might snack with that a little bit later, but that's enough celery for me. But other than that, not so much. Next, we're gonna do red onion. You can use white if you like, or no onion at all if you're not an onion fan, that works too. I just like it for the contrast of color and then also the texture when you're eating it. So I'm gonna trim off the end here. I'm gonna leave a little bit of the root because I want to be able to have that to hold on to. And then I'm going to take the blossom end off as well. And then I'm gonna just peel the outer layer because it's ugly. Now, why didn't I cut down the middle of this? Okay, yes, I did wash my vegetables and everything before I used it, but I don't also trust, they say that a fair amount of bacteria still lives in that root end because that's where the dirt is. And as I tell my students, what happens in the dirt with animals, they go to the bathroom there. So I'm gonna just make sure that that's not cut into the flesh of the usable part of the onion. So that is cut, pulled away. Now I'm gonna cut through. I'm not gonna use all of the onion for the mixture. I'm gonna save some for the sandwich as well. And then you can go back and make little stripes through the onion. You see the little stripes at the top. Those are nature's little guidelines of telling you where to make the little fingers. I also like to take in, because when you do that, it kind of spreads out. I like to make little half rainbow arcs.
So you have a few more questions.
Sure.
While you're chopping away, what's the most awkward and or weird vegetable you've eaten?
Mm-hmm.
And when you travel, is it hard for you to find vegan alternatives?
Okay, so the most awkward and weird thing to prep or cook, is that what the question was?
That you've eaten.
That I've eaten?
Mm-hmm.
I hate fennel. Like, I love almost every single other fruit, vegetable. I love mushrooms, they're my favorite, but I hate fennel. Like, I hate it with a passion that is so very strong. And so if I can avoid it, I do. I think outside of that, I'll be game to try something, even if it's something I've never had before. At least once, maybe a few times over in a different preparation, but I know for a fact that fennel is a no-go for me. And then for traveling, so I travel a fair amount myself, and the internet is a godsend for all things vegan, vegetarian. And there's a lovely website that I utilize a lot of times. Yelp is a good one, but there's one that's tailored towards vegan and vegetarian food called happycow.net. Not that I'm promoting them, but I just find them helpful. Gotta put that out there, right? But you can tailor it to your search. You can put in, just like Yelp, do you want Indian food, Mexican food? Do you want vegan? Do you want vegetarian, lacto, ovo, whatever type of vegetarian you subscribe to? And they can help you find it in locales. I went to London this past Thanksgiving break, and I will say that they are amazing for vegan and vegetarian options. They have options on the menu that are not even just have a salad, but they have full entrees that are thoughtful and presented and composed dishes that aren't just like beans and rice or side dishes. So I do love a side of French fries, but that is not always the best option. I would like something interesting, intriguing, because I am in that world of culinary and I like to be engaged in that manner. So I just think it's an opportunity for restaurants to rethink what they're doing, and it's a market that's growing now. but then it also gives them more range on their menu, and they're capturing a full audience instead of, because I've been one that have walked out of a restaurant when I've looked at the menu and they have nothing for me except for a salad, and I love lettuce, not gonna lie, it's great, but sometimes I just need something a little bit more filling. So I was glad to see that when I was traveling, and a lot of other countries and places are making it approachable. So I got my celery and onions in my bowl, just like that. And then now it's time for seasoning. I'm not gonna go overboard because you can always add to it. You can never take it back out. So salt's gonna go last, most definitely. I'm gonna put a little black pepper in here. You don't have to have fresh ground if you have like the pre-ground in the cupboard too, totally cool. White or black pepper. I just like black pepper myself. So a couple cranks over the top. I like a fair amount of black pepper because I like a little bit of the spice that it brings. So you can withhold as much as you like. Okay. And then I'm going to add to it this beauty. So for most of us, we think of Old Bay, we think crab boils, shrimp boils, and all of the beautiful things. So I'm relying on that trick of the mind. So when you add it to it, you're like, this could be seafood. I could get that. I could see it. But I'm not a big fan of it. So a little goes a long way because it has celery salt in it and can get very overpowering. So just not even a full spoon. We're gonna start with a half. I may add more. We'll find out. So there's that. Sweet pickle relish. I like the sweet because it has that contrast with the savoriness of the celery as well as the red onion. If you have dill pickle relish or you don't like it at all, substitutions can be made and totally understandable. Start with 2 spoons. I'll go with that. And then this is my extra additive that I add to it. It's dulse granulars. So that is a seaweed. So when you think of seaweed, you think of the ocean. It has a little bit of that kind of oceany, saltwatery smell and taste to it. So again, another trick on the mind to think about seafood when there's really no seafood in it. And it looks a little bit like black pepper, so no one's gonna be freaked out when they see it. I'm just gonna add a good, that's like a pinch-ish. Shayna, did you have a question?
No, I'm like looking and you're making me hungry, Chef.
Yes, that's the goal. All right, so I got my black pepper, my sweet pickle relish, my spices, all my internal fixings. Now it comes for the mayonnaise. So I'm gonna add that in. I'm gonna add just a little bit at a time because, again, this is your own comfort level. Some people like it really creamy. I don't, because you know, at the end of this show, I get to keep this, and so this is my dinner tonight. But if you're making it for family and friends, obviously make it for whomever is your audience, and if they like a little mayonnaise, go for it. I may even throw in an extra tablespoon of Dijon, because that's my fave. So mix it up. I try to incorporate at the bottom. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go for that bigger spatula, because this is gonna take me about 5 years to mix with this one.
Chef, one person is asking, what did you put in after the Old Bay again?
Sure, I put in dulse flakes. And I got this at Whole Foods. I also believe it's available on Amazon, but I don't know when it'll get to you because Amazon's taking about 3 years now. So, but that was available in my local Whole Foods. I have seen it in some other supermarkets in the international section where they have a lot of the Chinese and Japanese ingredients, just because there's a lot of seafood utilized in that type of cuisine. So this is looking a little bit dry to me. It's almost there, but not quite. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and add maybe a couple more dollops of mayonnaise to it.
So Pablo is saying, we all love Pablo.
Yes, that's our our events coordinator on the North Miami campus. Thanks for joining us tonight, Pablo.
He wants to know, can he come and do a drive-by pickup for us?
He can do a drive-by pickup. It just has to be contactless and he has to wear a mask. So you are more than welcome. I'll text you afterwards. Now, are you just wanting the tuna salad or do you want the sandwiches? because I don't know if I'm Uber Eatsing it or not for you. All right. So.
He said deal.
All right. So that's the consistency that I like for my tuna salad when I make it. I'm going to give it a taste and adjust any seasonings that I might need at this point. Okay.
And Chef Camp says hello.
Hey, Chef Camp. Thanks for joining. Ooh, she might come over and run over and grab some too. See, that's the downside of living so close to everybody. I added just a little bit more Old Bay. Even though it's not my favorite, I was like, oh, it needs a little bit more of that reminder that it could be seafood. And a little bit more dulse flakes for that oceany taste. And because I didn't add any salt to this, Old Bay already has a fair amount of salt. And then this is a salt alternative. So I don't necessarily need it. I have it there in case I want it. But I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to need it.
So Chef Camp is asking,
Mm-hmm.
Are we having a tuna sandwich or a tuna melt on sourdough?
See, I refuse to eat tuna melts of any kind, even when it's not even tuna, because there's something about hot mayonnaise and hot cheese melted into bread that just really does not sound good to me. But I'm gonna finish it off and make a sandwich after this because it's pretty close. I'm gonna give it one more taste, and I think we're where we need to be. This is at the point, like if you wanted to add eggs to it, I would chop them up. Or if you wanted the tofu for that texture of the egg, if you're fully plant-based, I would add that in at this point. I don't usually add it in until last because we want the little pieces there to look like egg, but not to disintegrate into the tuna salad.
So, before I tell you Pablo's exchange for a tuna melt, David is asking, which is the best bread option for this sandwich?
Best bread option, I would do something that's a little bit heartier, which to me means maybe a little bit less than like the packaged bread because that's really soft. This is a little bit moist, so you want something to hold up with it, to hold that structure of the sandwich together pretty well. So I would use probably like a more whole grain or like an artisanal bread. And if your stores don't have one of those, you can use a tortilla, make a wrap, you can use a pita pocket and make a sandwich. I think most of like the pre-made store-bought bags with the really soft and pillowy bread is a little bit difficult to hold like the structure of that sandwich together because it gets a bit soggy. But again, if that's all you have, it works. I also don't even sometimes have this as a sandwich. I like to eat them with tortilla chips like a dip. So you could almost, if you wanted to, make this like a tuna-less dip for a snack with pita chips also, or pretzel chips. However it tastes good to you works for me. So, but because I have a lot of free time and I have the skill set. I also made some fresh bread the last couple of days. So if you have that skill or someone in your family who has that skill or know a baker who can, this is a sourdough levain, and I'm just going to slice it into two slices for a sandwich. This is where that serrated knife comes handy because it does have a little bit of body to it. You can toast them too. See, that's what I like to do where it's like that happy medium of melt. Is I toast the bread beforehand and then I put the cold salad so it has that crunch of the outside but not the hot mayonnaise-y center, which is not my favorite. Two slices here, and then you can dress up your sandwich as you like. I have a couple toppings in front of me, so I'll make a full sandwich for you, and I'll put that together. So you can see like this one has, I also cut it a little bit thicker, but it's not as soft and doughy as some of the prepackaged breads would be. So it has a little bit more body to it, so which is fine. So I'm gonna bring back our Dijon mustard. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
The other thing is, so Pablo said he will trade you for Desserts by Daniel.
Yes.
And Yvonne said you have to
do that for sure. And I was also getting the signal from Miss Shayna that I am a little bit over my time. So I'm going to take a last call for any other questions. Feel free to shout them out to Miss Shayna and she'll let me know. And while we're answering or asking questions, I can build my sandwich for you. Nothing?
Mm-mm.
Oh, wow. Well, what I do...
You explained everything very well.
I tried. We had some really good questions at the start too, so I am thankful for those. I think there was a David in there. Thank you for your questions earlier. Any alumni from 2009 on there? People that I might know from... I went to JU from 2005 to 2009, so if you were there at that time, shout it out. I'd be interested to have y'all or know if you were here. Some lettuce and tomatoes. You can mix and match however you like it. You could put cheese on it, any veggies that you want. I'm just going for like a classic sandwich here. And then you may want to put a fair amount on here, but you know, unless you want it to fall over the sides, just careful. Because a little goes a long way, and then it's also a little bit left over for later. So, together, I put my mayonnaise and mustard on opposing sides. You can mix them, that's fine too, but I just like to have a little bit of a barrier between the bread so it doesn't get soggy again from that mayonnaise. And there we go, our sandwich. Thank you all again. Last call for any questions. If not, I appreciate you all for joining us, and thank you.
Awesome, Chef. This looks great.
Thank you guys. It sounds like I have a couple people headed my way.